It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And you take a look at all of the stuff happening leading up to this draft. Different opinions all over the place. The Eagles at number 12. We'll get into it some more here. Andrew DiCecco in just a second. Football at 4 brought to you by Dr. Lyle M. Back. Everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery. Go to ilovelylback.com or call 856-MAKEOVER. Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. Let's bring Andrew into the Football at 4 conversation as we get you ready for the NFL draft. Less than a month away. Here we go. It's starting to get to, a little bit exciting as, the trade happened, and now all of a sudden all sorts of stuff happens. Let's bring Andrew in and get some more draft conversation, some more Eagles news and notes here on the Sports Bash. Andrew, what's up, my man?
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Everything's good. It feels like I don't know. It feels like it's getting closer, but still a little ways off. I guess that trade kind of, changed some things here. But we have so much kind of to dissect as we get this. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you were a big Penei Sewell guy, correct?
Yes.
All right. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine. He has Slater ahead of Sewell, and I said, you're the first guy I've heard say that. Now, I mean, I'm sure other people have them ranked, but if Slater is available, and if I don't know that you think he will be at number 12, but is Slater a guy that you would be interested in as you were with Sewell at number 6? Is Slater a guy that you would be interested in if he was there at number 12?
He's someone that I would give consideration to if I'm the Eagles, but he's not. He wouldn't be the best player available in my board, at least at number 12, when I think you can address the cornerback position or possibly wide receiver. I think that Jalen Waddle or J.C. Horn or even a Micah Parsons would be the best player available at that point. It all depends on how they have Slater rated. I mean, he's a top 15 player, in my opinion, and his versatility is ultimately what propelled his draft stock. And I think that he'll get some consideration there. We obviously know that the Eagles have really prioritized strengthening the trenches in recent years, and I think that that's a direction they could definitely go. It wouldn't surprise me if they went that way at all. It's just not what I would necessarily do at 12.
Right. I mean, it's so you're saying Penei Sewell to you would be the best player available, perhaps if he got to 12, where Slater to you would not.
Oh, yeah. Penei Sewell, even at 6, if he was there at 6, he'd be the best player available. I believe I have him as my second or third overall player in this entire draft. So I think that would be tremendous value. He definitely won't be around at 12. He's just a freakish athlete. He's ready to step in day one and be that franchise left tackle. And there's just some things that he can do that you're just simply not going to find on many prospects, even looking back in recent years. He's that good that he's just going to step in there and he has future All-Pros in his future. So.
All right, well, that's an interesting take because, Slater, we're starting to see. I have not seen him on very many draft boards ahead of Penei Sewell, but it was an interesting conversation, and I kind of opened my eyes and was like, all right, well, let me do a little bit more digging on this because I agree with you. I maybe because Sewell didn't play. For some people out there,
right.
Could that be, I guess, factored in? I thought for me, and let's see what you. Where do you see Slater playing in the NFL? Do you see him as more of an inside guard, or do you see him playing tackle?
I see him as a right tackle right now, but has the versatility to play inside, and he could play left tackle if a team likes his skill set enough to have him do that. But I think he's best suited to play right tackle and possibly some interior. Once he gets settled into his career, I think he might ultimately settle in as a guard.
Andrew, in your mind, give me the differences between the three corners that should be right around 12, which would be Patrick Surtain, which might go higher, J.C. Horn, Caleb Farley. Are they the number one? Are they the top three corners definitively? And how do you kind of see those three guys if they were all there at 12?
The first answer to your question, to the first part of your question, would be yes, they are definitively the best players at the position. And kind of how I separate them is it all depends on what your flavor is, right? So I think that Caleb Farley is going to take a tumble in this draft because of the injury history, and that back procedure that he had to undergo last week. Unfortunately, that was really bad timing, and that's going to probably knock him out of the first round. I would think maybe a team will take him late in the first. But I mean, when you're looking at Caleb Farley, I think he has the highest ceiling out of all three of them. He has the wingspan, the length, the physicality, the ball skills, the tackling. His ability to match and mirror is fantastic. He just has an innate athlete. Isn't quite necessarily as polished as a guy like Patrick Surtain, who also has great size, physicality. You would like to see him turn some of those pass breakups that he had. He had a number of them at Alabama. You'd like to see them turn into interceptions a little bit more. So he's going to have to work on his ball skills, but he's a guy that I think is ready to step in and play right away. And I think he's just more technically savvy than J.C. Horn and Caleb Farley. And then when I look at J.C. Horn, who I think would be a desirable candidate at 12, we see someone with an alpha mentality, a very physical defender, sometimes a little bit too grabby. But I think there's some that think he can even play safety at the next level. I think he's going to be a boundary corner, a bully type of corner, something like a Jalen Ramsey. Needs to work on certain aspects of his game. Doesn't always have the most fluid footwork, but these are areas that you could really that are going to get ironed out with the proper coaching staff at the next level. I think his ceiling is higher than Surtain's, but that's kind of how I differentiate the three.
A lot of people talk about Micah Parsons, and in Todd McShay's latest mock draft, he has Micah Parsons going number 12 to Philadelphia. I know Jeff Mosher somewhere is rolling his eyes and saying that's not going to happen. But if is number one, do you think the Eagles would have Parsons, as best player available and take him there? And number two, is this a good linebacker class after Parsons? In other words, like Jermaine Davis, who's the kid from Notre Dame? Jeremiah.
Jeremiah.
Yeah. Are there other linebackers? Because I think most people who look at this just feel Micah Parsons, and that's it.
Yeah, that's not accurate. This actually is a decent draft for linebackers, and we mentioned a couple of them when we spoke on Tuesday that are going to be sitting, kind of hanging in the balance there when the Eagles are on the clock at the top of the second round. Micah Parsons, and I agree with Jeff here. I think that's just that's a pipe dream that the Eagles, and they're going to sit there and take him and scoop him up at 12. Do I think he's going to be available there? Yeah, I do. I think he's kind of going to go in that 9 to 12 range. However, I just don't see the Eagles being that team that's going to select him, given their prior history of linebackers, or I should say their lack of prioritizing the linebacker position. Let's not forget that Micah Parsons also has a little bit of a checkered past that I think it's going to be a little bit hard to get past, especially if you're a team like the Eagles that are really trying to establish a new identity under a new young head coach. That's not, if that's the first player you're bringing under that new regime, they kind of would be a little bit questionable in my opinion. But so I don't necessarily think he would be in play at 12.
What's just for the listeners out there when they hear Micah Parsons' name? I mean, let me ask you this first. Do you feel that the linebacker position is changing in the NFL? In other words, are teams valuing it more? Should the Eagles change their opinion? I mean, you saw what Bush did and Tampa Bay with their defense, and there's been other linebackers. I feel like there was a change from these like old school, like Jeremiah Trotter, 260-pound run stuffing middle linebackers. And it took a while for that position to kind of evolve to what it's now become. But now those guys seem pretty valuable. So is the linebacker position evolved and changed in the league?
Oh, absolutely, in a big way. I mean, look, maybe 5-6 years ago, you saw converted safeties, guys that were a little bit of the hulking type of style of safety, like the Mark Barons and the Dan Buchanans. They ended up becoming hybrid linebackers because they could cover in short to intermediate areas, but they lacked the athleticism to cover over the top. which you really need to do to be an NFL safety, a starting caliber safety. So, I mean, now you're starting to see these guys that are tweeners, like the Davion Taylors. Darius Leonard was incredibly small when he came out. I believe he's maybe 220 pounds. They're looking for these fluid, fast guys that can cover sideline to sideline, match up with these hybrid tight ends, and sometimes even move into the slot and defend some of those guys, because that's the way the NFL offenses are run now, Mike. They're these spread offenses, and sometimes they're a little bit too big and physical for a safety, or I should say they're too fast for a safety, but like you need to get a linebacker for the size on them. So you really need to have that fluid, all-purpose second-level defender, and that's really the way the NFL is trending. If you look at a lot of these guys that are getting drafted kind of relatively high, it is those players of that smaller mold that used to be shunned years ago. You mentioned Jeremiah Trotter. Those two-down run defenders are a thing of the past.
Yeah.
And now they're going on the third day, and some of those guys that were actually really good in college in that area are going undrafted in some cases. So, I mean, it's just the changing of the guard at that position.
Well, it's almost like now kids in high school and college, you've gotten a generation of them playing that position at this new linebacker size. So now that when they get into the league, they're not like learning a new position. They've now played that position at that smaller size. So a guy like Micah Parsons, it's not like, hey, you kind of have safety size and you played safety, I'm going to move you to linebacker. They've now played linebacker in college and in high school because that's the way the game has changed. So it seems like it's taken a while, but it's kind of caught up that these athletes are playing that position at that size now all the way through their careers and not just being moved there.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more in that area. I mean, look at Isaiah Simmons. I don't know how I forgot about him, but he's another player, similar mold. I mean, these guys, like you said, they're already playing that position, so you don't have to really – there's no transition when you get to the next level. And like there really is for Davion Taylor, he's transitioning in how to be an NFL linebacker. He didn't have a lot of experience in that type of coverage role, a disciplined role, but a lot of these guys have. Micah Parsons, these are roles that they've played their entire football career. So It's not really – you don't really have to transition now. So they're already ready to go. And now it's sort of like now they need to learn the NFL defenses and things like that, and adjust to the speed of the game, of course. But I mean, they have the skill set. I mean, the game is constantly evolving, and you started to see it over the last few years that this is the way that it was headed. And now you really have to be of that makeup to be successful and be a multifaceted linebacker at the NFL, and not be such a limited role player or relegated to special teams because you have. You're a one-dimensional linebacker. You really have to have that versatile skill set.
Real good explanation. Now, give us your take on Parsons' skill set. What makes him the top guy at that position in this draft? And one that I think a lot of Eagles fans would be pretty happy about if his name was called on at pick number 12. Why? What do you see from him that should make Eagles fans excited? Because a lot of people say, look, they need an impact player on defense, regardless of position. Would he qualify?
Oh, 100%. He has the length, the athleticism, the instincts. He's going to shoot the gap and make plays on the other side of the, behind the line of scrimmage. And really, he sees the entire field so well. He's a smart player. He moves very fluid laterally and can cover a lot of ground. And that's such a valuable. When you're looking at a component that you can potentially add to your defense, I mean, he can do so many different things, and he would be such a valuable asset. It has yet to be seen how Jonathan Gannon feels about that. I mean, the previous regime obviously didn't put a very high ranking at the linebacker position, but he did have experience playing with Bobby Okereke and Darius Leonard. He coached those guys that were very proficient in the coverage area and made an impact on that defense. And in many ways, they were the heart and soul of that defense. So I think that it wouldn't surprise me if they took a linebacker maybe at the top of the second round. It just seems like it might be a little rich still for the Eagles to ultimately just completely flip their identity and go with the linebacker at 12. But, crazier things have happened.
Well, yeah, and as you just said, they have not only a new regime, they have new defensive guys, new defensive scheme, and who knows how much, Jonathan Gannon said, look, this is what I'm going to run, this is what I'm going to need. Not that Jim Schwartz didn't value linebackers either, but maybe with this new regime that they just have a totally different philosophy on defense. And as we just kind of chronicled, the league is changing. The linebacker position was kind of a forgotten about position, but I feel like it's starting to come back, and maybe the Eagles are seeing that, and that coupled with the new defensive coordinator could get them to think that. We shall see. Now, you mentioned on Tuesday's show, Nick Bolton, Baron Browning, guys in the second round. You mentioned earlier, though, it's a good draft for linebackers. So is this something – they have 2 third-round picks. Is that a spot that you can land a good linebacker?
Yeah, I mean, you could, but I think that there's a significant drop-off in talent when you're looking at Nick Bolton and Baron Browning, and then you're looking at Surratt, the linebacker from UNC, and Jabril Cox won't be there in the third round. I mean, if you're looking for an impact player, you got to grab one in the second round, because those guys, like I mentioned, Jabril Cox is going to go at the end of the second round, but Browning and Bolton are going to go high second, in my opinion. And those are impact players. And like we said, an overlooked aspect of this draft is what we don't know yet what Jonathan Gannon's, what his priority list is. Maybe it is. Maybe he needs a coverage linebacker to efficiently run his defense. We saw what he was able to do with that. Well, he didn't. I mean, he kind of presided over it. He was in Indianapolis, but he may put a precedent on that area now that he's able to kind of see what he has to work with and see the players that are available. And he may say, this is the guy that I need to really start to build around, because we've got to start adding building blocks. So I think that the second round would be the desirable area to really add one of those guys.
Let me get your opinion. By the way, we're talking with Andrew DiCecco, Football 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, the draft is coming up. We are getting ready. What do you make of all of the pro days yesterday, guys running these ridiculous times and what it did for Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, guys that were just Kadarius Toney, another guy ran a 4.3. I mean, you look at a lot of guys yesterday. Did they change your opinion? Did it change teams' opinion?
Like I tweeted yesterday, 4.3s for everyone. And I'm saying that this draft class must be historically the fastest draft class of all time, because and it's hard to appreciate when you see these numbers come through. I've been to a number of pro days, including going out to Virginia and Maryland and all these different places, and all these 4.3s, like they just don't happen that regularly. I mean, you have to take the numbers with a grain of salt, because when you look at what happens at the NFL Combine, you don't necessarily see those type of numbers, Mike. And a lot of that has to do with, yes, you're in a relaxed environment at pro day, and, you're comfortable. And obviously when you're more comfortable, you're going to perform better. But all these players are just running these record times, and it just it makes me laugh a little bit, because I mean, some you can sort of believe, but some of them, all these DNs are running 4.3s, 4.4s. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, sure. And there's nobody really there to verify that. So, I mean, I think that I think it's great that they're able to have their pro days and everything. And I think this is the year that you really have to go off of the film more so than rely on these testing numbers that are astronomically through the roof in some cases. So this is where really breaking down film is most important when you're evaluating this year's draft talent.
Yeah, everybody. It wasn't only that they ran so fast; it was that they all ran 4.38s. It was like that number was everywhere. It's like, hey, let's all run the same 4.38. Okay, all right, let's put that out there. By the way, Kyle Pitts didn't run a 4.38, but he ran a 4.4 for a man 6'5" and 260 pounds. That's pretty impressive there. So we'll see where he ends up going when the dust settles. We talked about it Tuesday. There was one mock draft that had him going 12. I don't think either one of us see that ended up happening. But stranger things, a lot of talent. We both kind of agree it's about 12 players and then a little bit of a drop off.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Usually after 12, there's a significant drop off. So I think they really backed it up to about the limit. They push it to the limit without sacrificing that top end talent.
Andrew DiCecco, Football 4. By the way, someone just texted in how we should hire Andrew. Maybe you can help out the Eagles front office, especially.
I want to say that. I want to say thank you for that. Thank you to that person. I appreciate the vote of confidence there.
All right. He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And, of course, Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow, Adam Kaplan will be here to talk a little draft, a little NFL, And the Eagles, of course, their offseason continues with the draft on April the 29th, 30th, and 31st. You can hear the draft right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Andrew, take care, man.
Mike, have a great holiday, too.
You do the same. And, of course, you'll be back on Tuesday to talk a little bit more NFL draft and Eagles with us here on the Sports Bash.